I'm Catherine, 39 years old, a devoted homemaker and mother to our bright-eyed 5-year-old daughter. My husband Bob is my steadfast companion in this journey of family life. Despite the bustling household, there's a quiet pang of estrangement from my own siblings. I find myself nestled between an older brother and a younger one, but the bonds between us have grown faint over the years. As a child, the rift was palpable. My brothers, inseparable in their adventures, left me behind because of my gender. Even now, they share a camaraderie that seems impervious to time. Despite the disparity in age, they remain close, even choosing to live together in adulthood. Since my marriage a decade ago, the distance from my family has widened, leaving me to wonder about my brothers' lives from afar. Loneliness, a familiar companion, prompted a decision to limit my own family size to 2 children, a resolution born from the ache of childhood exclusion. Yet fate had its own plans. Despite my advancing age, the arrival of our daughter brought a warmth and joy that filled the void. Now, my world revolves around the cozy embrace of Bob and our daughter, leaving little room for thoughts of my brothers. Even news of my older brother's impending engagement failed to stir more than a passing curiosity. Yet, as the day of his introduction to Marilyn approached, the family home buzzed with excitement. My parents, long concerned about my brother's single status, busied themselves with preparations while my younger brother bemoaned his own solo status. Then, as my brother entered with Marilyn by his side, the air was electric with celebration, casting aside any lingering shadows of estrangement. I observed the scene with a detached air, as if it were unfolding in a distant land with no connection to my reality. "All the best to you, Mike and Marilyn," I managed to muster, though my words felt hollow even to my own ears. As I mechanically prepared the coffee, Marilyn ventured into the kitchen, offering her assistance. I declined politely, insisting she enjoy the gathering as our guest. Yet Marilyn's demeanor hinted at something more sinister, smirk playing at the corners of her lips as she remarked on the passage of time. "Time is cruel, isn't it? You who were once so small, now the lady of the house," she taunted, leaving me at a loss for words. I could only nod in response, masking my discomfort. Returning to the living room, Marilyn left me to contemplate her cryptic words. Despite her apparent dislike, I resolved not to let her affect me. However, the unease lingered like a shadow, casting doubt on the future of my relationship with my brother and his new wife. A month later, my mother's invitation to the family reunion prompted a visit home. Joined by Bob and our daughter, we entered my childhood home, greeted by familiar faces. As my family embraced Bob and our daughter, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief at the genuine warmth exchanged. As I busied myself with coffee refills in the kitchen, Marilyn once again appeared at my side. Her presence sent a shiver down my spine, but I maintained my composure. "Catherine," she began, her tone laden with unspoken implications, "I don't want to see your face at our family gatherings. As a wife, you should be attending your husband's family events." Marilyn spat out, her words dripping with disdain. I felt a surge of indignation, but I held my ground. "Don't worry, I hardly have anything to do with this house. Even today, I was only called over by my mother." "Then please, don't come over, even if my mother-in-law calls you," she retorted sharply. I couldn't fathom why Marilyn harbored such animosity towards me, but I couldn't summon the energy to care about the woman who was soon to be my brother's wife. They say the opposite of love is indifference, and that was exactly how I felt, indifferent. Throughout my life, I had been treated like an unwanted presence by my own brothers, leaving my heart weary. Meeting Bob, starting a family, brought a glimmer of happiness, but Marilyn seemed oblivious to my detached feelings. "If you hate me, please, don't talk to me," I countered, meeting Marilyn's glare before she stormed back to the living room. Since my brother's marriage, my mother had been urging me to attend family gatherings more frequently in an attempt to mend fences. But after the incident with Marilyn, I made a conscious decision to stay away. As long as she didn't make my brother unhappy, her treatment of me seemed inconsequential. My brother's late-in-life marriage had been a cause for celebration, and I didn't want to dampen his joy. We didn't interact often, and I convinced myself that enduring occasional meetings was tolerable. I confided in Bob about my decision. "Do you really want to become family with someone who hurts you?" he questioned, his support unwavering. "It's okay. I wasn't close with my brother, but I still want him to be happy as a sibling. If it ends up with just me bearing it, then it's okay." Bob's words brought a sense of validation, yet I couldn't shake the bitterness. However, my reverie was interrupted by a call from an unfamiliar number. It was Marilyn. "Oh, Catherine, how have you been?" she greeted, her tone falsely cheerful. When I said I wanted to be friends with you, he immediately gave me your number. Marilyn's voice cut through the silence, catching me off guard. I tried to maintain composure, masking the unease bubbling within me. Is that so? I replied, feigning indifference. Do you keep in touch with Mike? She inquired, her tone laced with accusation. I hesitated, my nerves fraying at her probing questions. No, I'm not, I stammered. Are you lying? She pressed, her voice sharp with irritation. Even if I badmouth you, no one believes me. How annoying are you? Confusion clouded my thoughts as I struggled to comprehend her hostility. Did I do something to you, Marilyn? It's the worst to not realize it. Anyway, you're married, so stay out of this. And don't say I said this. If you do, I'll send some scary people I know to your house, she threatened, her words sending a chill down my spine. I ended the call abruptly, my hands trembling with fear. Unsure of my next move, I debated whether to intervene in my brother's impending marriage or seek guidance from my parents. As I grappled with my options, a comforting hand rested on my shoulder, jolting me from my thoughts. Startled, I turned to find Bob's concerned gaze fixed upon me. You're as pale as a ghost, he remarked, his worry evident. His words brought a stark realization of the fear coursing through me, chilling me to the bone. I recounted the unsettling conversation to Bob, his anger mounting with each word. What the hell is that for? Just block the number and let's report this to your parents or brother immediately. There's no way he can be happy marrying that person, Bob insisted, his protective instincts flaring. I hesitated, torn between intervening and maintaining distance. But maybe she's a good person in front of my brother. I just need to stay out of it, I'm sure, I argued weakly. Do you think that's the end of it? That woman threatened you, didn't she? She's not a decent person. If your brother knew what she did to you, I'm sure. Bob's words trailed off, leaving me seething with anger. I understand, but why must I be the one to intervene? I've kept my distance from my brothers for so long. If our small family unit remains intact, isn't that enough? Is it not acceptable? The calm facade I typically maintained shattered as memories of childhood exclusion flooded my mind. The pain of being sidelined by my brothers, as if I were invisible, ignited a long-buried anger. Yet I knew Bob wasn't the target for my frustration. Suddenly realizing this, I turned to him and offered an apology. I'm sorry. You've done nothing wrong. In response, Bob enveloped me in a tight embrace. You've been holding back a lot, haven't you? I'm on your side, Catherine. You can vent your feelings to me, but I believe you should talk with your brothers. His words brought a sense of relief, and I resolved to address the lingering issues with my siblings. Despite feeling slightly more at ease, I knew I needed to confront the past. I decided to reach out to my brothers and arrange a private conversation among the three of us. However, the planned call never materialized. Instead, I received a distressing phone call from my mother. My brothers, while on a trip to Maryland, had been involved in a serious accident on their way back. I rushed to the hospital in a state of panic. Marilyn had sustained minor injuries, but my brothers were in critical condition. Upon my arrival, the surgery had concluded, and by some stroke of luck, my brother had managed to pull through. They were promptly transferred to the ICU, granting me only a brief visitation window. Given the strained situation with Marilyn, I kept my distance, mindful of the tension lingering in the air. My mother, however, expressed concern for Marilyn's well-being, suggesting it must be difficult for me to return home alone. Marilyn, you don't need to worry about anything at home. Why don't you stay with us for a while? She proposed, her worry evident. But Marilyn, wearing a pained expression, declined with a curt no, thank you. I'll go home to my parents' house. In a gesture of goodwill, my mother offered to drive her home, yet Marilyn insisted she was fine and swiftly departed from the hospital. Despite my reservations, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for her. At least she was safe at her parents' home, away from the chaos of the hospital. In the following days, Marilyn never returned to the hospital, while my parents and I made frequent visits. Initially, my brothers were confined to their beds, writhing in pain, but gradually signs of improvement emerged. Meanwhile, my brother's impending marriage to Marilyn remained in limbo. With the wedding arrangements pending and Marilyn unreachable, my mother took it upon herself to liaise with the venue, explaining the circumstances. Unable to broach the topic of reconciliation with my brothers or delve into the contents of Marilyn's ominous phone call, I continued my visits to the hospital. Though they were immobile, their gentle smiles upon seeing me brought a sense of solace. About 2 months into their hospitalization, I approached their room alone, only to overhear my mother and brothers engaged in conversation. If something were to happen to me, I've made sure the insurance money would go to Catherine. If Catherine is happy, then I'm content, my older brother remarked, his words laced with sincerity. A pang of guilt washed over me as I listened, but their discussion shifted to Marilyn. Truly, I feel bad for Marilyn, but perhaps it was for the best that we didn't invite Catherine. Marilyn seems uncomfortable around her. If that weren't the case, we would have invited the whole family, my younger brother chimed in, his words echoing in the corridor. I was dumbfounded by what I was hearing. They were always inseparable, always making me feel like an outsider. That kid, when she was small, she used to imitate me and got injured. I'm a man after all, so I've done dangerous things, but I can't let Catherine get hurt again. Plus, our sister, she's so serious all the time. It's hard to depend on someone who tries so hard at this. I heard my brother's voice, tinged with concern. Mom chuckled in disbelief. You thought that much about Catherine? My heart swelled with unexpected emotion. Together, we pleaded with Bob to take care of Catherine. Ah, those were the days. I remembered the shock on Bob's face. It seems like he's taking good care of her, just like he promised, someone remarked amid the laughter and chatter. But I couldn't bring myself to join in. Tears streamed down my face, rendering me unable to lift my head. How could I have been so blind to the love surrounding me? At that moment, I made a decision. I retraced my steps and headed to Marilyn's parents' house. When I rang the doorbell and introduced myself, a disgruntled Marilyn appeared before me. Could you please go visit my brother in the hospital? I heard you haven't visited him even once since the accident, I pleaded, bowing my head deeply. But Marilyn flatly refused me. You think I'm going to marry a man in that state? I told you a lot of things, but it doesn't matter anymore. I plan to discuss breaking off our engagement once everything has settled down. I'm glad we didn't get married. My heart sank at her words. Marilyn, didn't you get engaged to my brother because you love him? Don't be silly. I work in insurance sales, and I approached him because I knew he had a high insurance policy. His salary seems high too, but it was a misunderstanding. That man, he put you as the insurance beneficiary. Usually you change the beneficiary to your spouse once you're engaged, Marilyn explained, her words landing like a heavy blow. After I convinced him of that, he said he'd change it to my name after we were officially married. I don't need a man with such injuries, Marilyn declared, her tone tinged with disdain. So, you were telling me to stay away from home so my brother and I wouldn't meet? I questioned, trying to make sense of her logic. Yes, if he cared that much for his sister, I thought it would be a nuisance. But I won't say those things anymore, so don't worry. The accident completely killed my love for him, and the fact that I got injured too is the worst. The accident is partly your brother's fault, so he should compensate me for the emotional damage. Marilyn explained, her words fueling a surge of anger within me. Despite my rising fury, I took a deep breath to calm myself down. If you consult a lawyer, you'll find that your demands won't go through, I reasoned. You don't know that, Marilyn retorted defiantly. I do. But more importantly, about my smartphone. I began, but Marilyn cut me off dismissively. I don't care about your smartphone, she interrupted. I see, it's about her to take notes. So my phone automatically records all phone calls like the threats you made. What would happen if I reported it to the police, I wonder? I challenged, a hint of satisfaction in my voice. At my words, Marilyn's demeanor shifted from defiance to anger. Yo, what the hell are you thinking? Recording is wiretapping. What kind of crime is that? You're recording people's conversations without permission. There must be some crime, she exclaimed, her voice rising in agitation. Just then, Marilyn's mother arrived at the front door and joined the confrontation. How dare you record her conversation without permission? Hand over your phone now, she demanded, her tone fierce. As Marilyn glared at me with disgust, I maintained a calm smile. I'm glad, too, that you wish to break off the engagement. I wouldn't want a person with such a bad character around my brother, I replied evenly. I uttered those words and departed Marilyn's family home, feeling as though I were fleeing from the situation. Immediately after, I made my way to the hospital room where my elder brother and younger brother were recuperating. Both of you, what I'm about to tell you might shock you, but I want you to know, so I won't hide it anymore, I prefaced, bracing myself for their reactions. I played the recording of the phone call I received from Marilyn, allowing them to hear her true intentions. Both my elder and younger brothers were taken aback, their eyes widening in disbelief. Furthermore, I revealed that I had discreetly recorded our earlier conversation when I met them, ensuring they heard Marilyn's manipulative words firsthand. My elder brother's fury was palpable, and despite his healing leg, he attempted to rise from his bed in agitation. I barely managed to restrain him. "Stop it. I didn't let you hear this because I wanted you to get angry. I just want you to give up on marrying Marilyn," I implored. Then, my younger brother spoke up. "I can't forgive her either. But sis, why did you go to such lengths for us?" I confessed that I had overheard their conversation with our mother earlier, apologizing for eavesdropping. To my surprise, they shook their heads in unison, expressing remorse for their distant behavior in the past. "That's what it was? We're sorry for being distant. We didn't know how to interact with you after that childhood incident. But the truth is, both of us always cared about you," my elder brother admitted, his words easing the tension in the room. Relieved by their heartfelt apology, I couldn't help but smile. "Thank you. I'm an adult now. I don't only need to be protected. I can protect you guys too." In the following days, my brothers made a full recovery and were discharged from the hospital. My elder brother announced the termination of his engagement with Marilyn, refusing her demands for compensation. He hired a lawyer, but naturally, no compensation was paid out. Meanwhile, my brothers shared Marilyn's misdeeds with their mutual friends, even providing recordings of her threats. Consequently, Marilyn found herself isolated and shunned by those around her. Since then, I've returned to my normal life feeling a newfound peace in my heart. My bond with my brothers has strengthened, and we often spend time together, making up for lost time. 2 years later, both my brothers found their future spouses, and our relationships with their families remain amicable. As I reflect on the journey we've taken, I'm filled with hope for our continued good relationship as in-laws.